Good morning. So, we will begin today's lecture. And so, during the last two lectures, we have studied how to draw bending moment, shear force, and axial force diagrams for various load conditions. So, please practice drawing these diagrams because these are very important. Now, today we will take up stresses due to bending. That means when the beam, what is a beam? How do you define a beam? A beam is a slender member which is subjected to transverse loading. Transverse loading, that means along the axis, transverse to the axis, loading is acting transversely to the axis. So, a beam is that kind of. Now, then this undergoes bending. And at any cross section, as we have seen that we have at any, so bending, lecture number 19. Yes, today is 5th October. So at any cross section, we have seen already, if you have a cross section, so at this cross section, we have, this is the axis, x-axis, y, and z. So on this cross section, we have seen that if the loading is in the plane of symmetry. So what is the plane of symmetry which divides the cross section into two halves? So if the loading is in the plane of the symmetry, first of all we have seen that is yes, the cross section must be symmetrical. So for example, rectangular section is symmetrical. There is no, we have also taken a dumbbell section, that is also has a vertical plane of symmetry. So this is your plane of symmetry. Plane of symmetry is xz plane. Xz plane divides the cross section into two halves and the loading is here. Loading is all applied in the plane of the symmetry. In that case, we have seen that at any cross section you have, and the loading need not be only vertical along z, it can also be inclined. So at this cross section we have seen that you have N axial force, we have shear force Q, and we have bending moment about y axis M. So in general we have three things, three forces that exist at any cross section along the length of the member. Now today let us simplify the problem and first try to learn what happens if you have only one, that means pure bending. If you have only bending moment, so at this, so if you have pure let us assume that this cross section is subjected to pure bending. So once we know about it, then we will go to the next step of finding out what happens when you also have, along with bending, you also have a shear force Q. Is it okay? So we will study pure bending. Now what kind of problem is this? when you have loading in xz plane, can we do some simplification to the three-dimensional problem? So, if you have, then the three-dimensional problem that is there, that gets reduced to two-dimensional, and we find that this is the plane of symmetry. If this is the plane of symmetry, this is the x-axis, in that case, at any cross section, so I am simplifying, I am now visualizing the three-dimensional problem as two-dimensional. So, I have drawn only xz plane, y dimension I am just saying because anyway there is no, everything is loading in the plane of symmetry. So, I am taking only a cross section which is longitudinal cross section xz. So, I am trying to analyze that cross section. So, now at any section here you have the shear force. So, simplification you must understand, you have the N, you have Q, and you have bending moment. If there is general loading, but let us say that in the beam that today we are going to study is subjected to pure bending moment. So, you have M and M. At every cross section along the length, so if I take any small element of this beam, if it is subjected to pure bending moment, the two ends of the beam are subjected to just bending moment, that means loading is specific. Then every element also will be subjected to, if you take any element, every element also will be subjected to the same moment along the length. So, it is a pure moment. Moment is not changing along the length of the, because then only this can exist, otherwise not possible. Pure moment means moment must remain constant along the length. So, we are taking this kind of situation, but in general you tell me if there is a point here in a general beam in the plane of symmetry, and if I am considering a small element, then what is the state of stress at this point P? If I enlarge this and I draw the element like this, then what is the state of stress? One is there is no load perpendicular to xz plane, there is no load in y direction. So, if you take any z plane, if you take any y plane, that means this. So, on that plane, that means this plane, and if you take a area, sigma z will be 0 on this, sigma y, not z, because z is upwards, y direction, y is here. So, here sigma y will be 0. Will it be 0 or not? Because there is no load in y direction. Then tau yx, so that means all the stresses that act on a y plane will be 0. What are the three stresses that act on a y plane? Because on any plane you have and then y, z. So, these three are 0. So, we are left with on this element, supposing I take out this element, from this I cut it. So, this is my one face, it is a cut face, this is another cut face, this is another cut face, this is another cut face. So, on this cut face, what is the stress that is acting? Yes, there will be sigma x. Yes, on this face. Explain, in general, explain. Similarly, on z plane, yes, there will be sigma z. Then on this face, the shear stress that is there, that is tau xy, and similarly tau yx, and then tau xy and tau yx, this will be present. So, we are left only with the three stress components that are acting on this point P. So, in general, you are left with sigma x, sigma z and tau xz. Remaining three components are 0. So, what is this? Are these not planar? Should I call this plane state of stress? And that is called plane stress. So, xz plane is under plane stress. So, beam, normally whenever we say the width beam, beam means this beam width, this is the width of the beam, this is the depth of the beam. Width beam normally we consider narrow. Okay. In every beam you will find the width is narrow. So, when we say narrow beam and this loading is in plane of symmetry, or we can also assume that the same loading is acting across the width B. It is a uniform loading across, no change in, because if there is any change in loading, then this cross section will twist about x axis, which we do not want. Okay. Is that clear? So, because we do not want torsion to come in the picture. Okay. So, either we say that all the loading is in the plane of symmetry, or we say if it is a rectangular cross section, then the loading is same along the width, so that there is no torsion, there is no twist about x axis. Is it okay? And this B is small, B is small. So, it is called narrow beam. Beam means narrow beam. Normally, whenever we consider any state of stress is plane stress. So, in a beam, the state of stress is plane stress, and then now we are considering now plane, we are considering, this is stresses due to loads which are in the plane of symmetry, and that causes the stress to be in a state of plane stress like this. So, please understand. So, this will be a narrow beam, that is B is small. Now, when we have this, before I take up deformation due to bending, which I showed you that every element of this beam, this one. So, if it is under pure bending, then every small element will be subjected to the same bending moment, and it will be like this. And that is what we are going to study, what will be the stresses due to pure bending. But before we take up this, let us try to see the geometry. Now, originally, I think you have learnt uh, coordinate geometry. So you know, if you have a straight line and if you bend it, then if you take 2 points very close to each other, then they will meet at some point. So P and Q, you have taken 2 points along this. So originally this is there and you have bent it. I am not saying that it is a circle or total thing, but yes, in the neighborhood, you know, if the 2 points are close enough, then this and this, if you draw the normal over here and normal over here, they will meet at O. Let us assume that this angle is a small angle d phi. This distance P and Q is ds, arc length ds, small. All of us know, and you have also studied, that there is a relationship between ds d phi and the radius of curvature that is formed at point O because of this bending. So if the radius of curvature is rho, then r rho into d phi equal to ds, or d phi by ds equal to 1 by rho. This is a simple 1 by rho is called curvature at point P. Now the derivative, all of us know that there is a little bit of mathematics. How do you define derivative of a quantity? Derivative of the quantity if point Q comes very close to, if Q comes close to P, that means if I take d phi by ds, take limit of that as delta s tends to 0, that is how Q will come closer to, then this one is defined as in our differential calculus d. This is the basic definition of d phi by ds. And this is now is equal to, so rate of change of phi with respect to s is curvature at a point P. So this much I just wanted to tell you before I go to the next point, that is deformation of the beam along the length. So you have a, see I am going slow, I am normally very slow, but so if you have these smaller elements of the beam, I am drawing this in xz plane, because now we are doing everything in xz plane. It is a plane stress problem, beam is a plane stress problem, so everything is confined to xz plane, it is a plane problem that we are discussing. So now these elements are all subjected to, just now I told you that if I take this element out and this element also, I am just leaving one element in between to give me some space. So everywhere, if this is subjected to moment m, the total beam is subjected to pure moment m, then this is also subjected to. At every point, if you take, now we have to make some predictions about the deformation of these. One is this line. After this deforms, once I am taking, this is undeformed. The moment you apply a moment, then what happens to this? This will become like this. Next one, this one will become like this. So, there will be longitudinal fibers along x axis. Some fibers will be stretched and some will be contracted. So, some will contract and some will stretch the fibers, and the shape of these elements under the action of movement will become like this. Now, I would like to know what happens to this edge. Originally, this edge was a cross section. Of course, we are seeing only a line, but otherwise it has got a width b. Width b or something, is it not? Width of the beam is b. So, b is there. So, but this edge, originally it is a straight line. Now, after it you apply the bending moment, does it remain straight? Now, let us say it does not remain. Let us say, for the sake of argument, that it does not remain straight, and it what? If it does not remain, so let us say it bulges out. So, we will say that okay, this does not remain straight, but it bulges out. So, under the action of bending moment, this cross section has bulged out under the action of this bending moment. Next, now if this has bulged out, then the next element also is in the similar state of, similar state, and that also must bulge out. Symmetry requires, because it is symmetrical, this one and this one is symmetry. Symmetry requires that if it bulges like this, then this also must become concave. I am just giving you this is heuristic argument. Now, but then try to bring it together. Will it fit? No, it will not fit. So, this will not fit. So, there is problem in our argument. If you say it bulges out, then yes, but then the fitting will not. Now, let us say no, it does not become when the bending moment is applied, yes, it becomes concave, not convex, but concave. So, one element becomes concave, the other element which is by the side of it, and that also is subjected to the similar kind of action, and therefore, that also must. Now, try to join them together. So, this will create void. That means, this is also not possible, because it must fit, and therefore, our argument is that this line, this transverse line, this line, I am talking of this line, which is straight, and after you have applied bending moment, yes, it bends like this. This argument you will, try to understand this. Yes, it bends like this, and all these longitudinal fibers which are there, some fibers will get extended, some will get contracted, and there will be one fiber somewhere that will neither get contracted nor extended. One plane, which plane? Plane is which plane? XY plane. Is it XY plane? Yes, it is XY plane. One XY, XY, supposing, it is moving, our coordinate system is not fixed yet. XY, I am saying, origin I have not fixed, but it is Y direction and this direction is, so it is XY plane. So these, because these are all planes, we are seeing only the trace of it in the cross section. So this will be straight, and then this is, so this is the kind of deformation that take place, and this must remain straight. This must remain straight. Okay, is it okay? Huh? So one thing is clear now, that yes, this cross section, the transverse section that are there, that that remains straight, and what? Anything else? Now this has a very significance. This plane has this very. This is called neutral plane. A plane that does not undergo any extension or compression. It only bends. Okay, the length, that means if you measure this length over here, this length from here to here, the length remains the same. That is called neutral plane. There is one. And this one, this line that you are seeing, this trace, this line that you are seeing in this plane, in the plane of the paper, that is called neutral axis. Neutral. So you have a neutral plane, you have a neutral axis. So now what we will do, we will coincide our x axis in the original undeformed beam with x axis. So neutral axis or neutral plane is now lying in x axis. So now I am all right. Z is perpendicular to that. So all the fibers above x axis, above x axis in z direction will undergo extension. All the fibers below this will go compression or contraction, and they will undergo shortening, and your cross section will take a shape like this. So I think you have got the idea of neutral plane and neutral axis. Now this is very important. Transverse, that means this transverse plane which is perpendicular to x axis, under the action of bending, this undergoes deformation, but it remains plane during deformation. Further, is there any xz? Yes. I told you something about it is in plane, the problem, under the action of it is in plane stress that we are considering. Then yes, what is the angle between this before deformation, between x and z? If you draw a cross section, 90 degree. Now after it bends, this x axis also gets bent, and then this also. Now what is this angle? Why should it be 90? Why should it be 90? Why it should not become inclined, more than 90 or less than 90? Side is along the x axis. No, there is more to it. There is more to it. See, this is little, I am sorry, I cannot go fast because this has to be explained. So this element that we have taken here, this angle is originally 90. After this, yes, this bends into the arc of a circle. This bends into an arc of a circle because this is a small element, and this, if you draw tangent to all these curved surfaces, this angle is still maintains, but then there is a reason. This one, because this one maintains 90 degree, because you are right, then only you are extending it and then you are having a circle, because otherwise you cannot. So this, in order that this deformation is like this must be 90 degree, and this must be 90 degree means what? Which shear strain is acting in this? Which is responsible for changing this angle? Is there any shear angle? Yes. What is this? I think I have already explained to you earlier that this is, if it is, this is x and this is z. This angle, change in this angle if you are applying and if this changes, then this angle is called, this change in 90 degree is the shear x z, shear strain x z. Is it okay or not? Now here what is happening? Is there any shear strain in xz plane? No, because there is no change in 90 degree. So what I would like you to remember, that here this deformation is such that xz, gamma xz is 0. Gamma, never say tau xz, not shear stress. There is nothing to do with shear stress. Shear stress, that we will see whether it is there or not. First of all, xz, just now we have zx is, tau zx is 0. It is a, slenderness and width being small, these are two different things. Slenderness of a beam is related always to length versus the depth. No, depth is small compared to length. Yes, it is a slender member, then only it can be 90 degree. But if this shear strain is 0, if the shear strain is 0, if you assume that transverse sections, let us assume that transverse sections, means this vertical transverse sections which are there, they remain, first of all you understood that they must remain straight, they must remain plane. But now the question is whether they will be 90 degree to the x axis or not, deformed x axis or not. So now we are saying no, if the shear strain is 0, then they have to be 90 degrees. There is no other, otherwise this is not possible. This angle cannot remain 90 if shear strain is present. So we are saying gamma, so this is gamma xz is 0. So transverse shear strain is 0. Okay. So just remember this, and as I proceed, I think it will become clearer. Okay. Initially, yes, this is a concept that not many people understand, and it comes only by after a lot of repetitions, but then you have to understand slowly. Okay, so plane sections, transverse plane sections during deformation remain plane and 90 degree to the neutral axis. Is that clear? And the meaning of that is that if it remains 90 degree, that means there is no shear strain, not stress. Shear strain is all right. Then what we should do next? Next, so we have studied deformation. I think deformation is, we have studied to some extent, but what is, after all, deformation must be, I think, as we studied, deformation leads to what? Strains. Body deforms and that leads to strains in the body. So, I must find out strain in the beam. So I will take a small element of the beam. Now I am fixing my x axis as the neutral axis, z is vertical, y is always horizontal. So, xy plane is neutral plane, xy plane is neutral plane. Now, yes please, let me consider a fiber at a distance z from the, this distance is z. So, I am considering at a, because after all any point, at a distance z, I am considering a fiber at a distance z, because this coordinate is z. Z is going up to the maximum half of the depth. What is the limit of plus minus h by 2? If h is the thickness, if the thickness of the total beam is h, so it is plus minus h by 2, h by 2 is the, so z is going to limit into h by 2. Now, once it is bending, don't worry about the, don't think that it has bulge and thickness has changed, both are having the same thickness, it is only I have drawn. So, this, everything is being drawn in microscope, this is, it will never be like this, all the deformations are small, deflections are small, everything is very, very small. So, here what will happen? Now, this fiber over here will get stretched, because this is at a distance z. So, that will get stretched. So, let me consider a small some element. Now, that element has become so. Now, this is your origin. Okay. So, I want to find out what is the strain in this fiber. This fiber which is at a distance z from the neutral axis, what is the strain? What kind of strain is this? Longitudinal strain, normal strain? Yes, it is normal strain, stretching, length is increasing. So, it is a, and what is the name that we should try to give this strain to? Epsilon x, it is in x direction, epsilon x at this point. So, epsilon x. So, I want to now define what is epsilon x. Epsilon x, see, after all, this neutral axis will not undergo any change in length. So, there is no question of any strain, zero strain. This one I have taken a distance z, so this fiber has got stretched. So, I want to find out what is the strain in this fiber. So, strain is being found out in this fiber, epsilon x. So, how will I get epsilon x? Epsilon x, how do you define a normal strain? That is the final length minus the, so what is the final length? Let this be rho from up to the neutral axis. So, rho plus z into d phi, this angle be, let us see, d phi. So, I will say rho plus z is the distance multiplied by delta phi is what? Is this length, arc length. Is it okay or not? Arc length. This arc length is equal to how much? This distance is rho, from here to here is rho radius plus z into d phi. Then what is the original length of this? Original length is same as the length of the neutral axis. Original length, all the fibers are having the same original length. So, original length will be rho times d phi. So, this is the change in length, and that divided by original length d phi. So, what you get? 0. Somebody said 0. Z hey, what is this? No. Z by rho d phi anyway, d phi will be there. Z by rho. Okay. We got this z by, yes. So, rho is constant and z is rho. Rho is what? Rho is the radius of curvature of the neutral axis in which it has taken a chord. It has gone into the from straight to curved length. So, it is a constant, and then z. So, it varies with z. So, strain varies linearly, and it is positive because these are all tensile strains. So, as you go over here, z equal to 0, no strain, and as you go up, it will be z times. So, z will be going up to h by 2, and similarly when you come down, z will become minus. So, minus, it will be 0 up to minus h by 2. Okay. Now, I can also write down this as z, and what is curvature is equal to d phi by ds. D phi by ds. So, I can. So, I have derived a relationship for strain, and we have realized that yes, strain varies linearly, and so we are trying to take a path that is usual, that we first study deformation, then we are finding out the strain. This complete study, we are not considering any force at all, We are only considering what is the ramification of the force, what is the effect of the force, what happens to the cross section when M is applied. That is what we are studying, but we have not done anything. Now, next we will try to relate this strain to what? To stress by using Hooke's law. So, at any point P, at any point over here, let us say here or here, along this, what is the stress? Stress will be given by. So, first of all, how many? Yes, please. So, next, so we have studied deformation. And that led to strain. So, this has been done. Now, next step is we will try to relate strain to stress by using Hooke's law. Which is also called stress strain relation. We'll bring in certain consideration. See, basically we are trying to study the behavior of a beam which is a three-dimensional body. Now that beam we made it into two dimension by saying that it is in a state of plane stress. And why did we do that? Because we wanted to simplify its behavior, mathematics. Otherwise three-dimensional, the mathematics will be too involved. Okay. So we restricted the type of loading. We said, okay, let the loading be in xz plane, and then the behavior will be like this. So one by one. So we have reduced the problem to two dimension. Now comes this consideration of Hooke's law. Now at any point P, I already told you that the state of stress that is present is in plane stress, and you have sigma x, you have shear stress, this changes, the shape of the cross section changes in xz plane. So deformation is taking place in that one. Only perpendicular to that which we said something, that this remains a straight line, this side remains a straight line. But then it changes. Then we also have this sigma z. So actually it is a two-dimensional state of. But then somebody just now was saying, yes, it is a slender beam. So slender, meaning of slender beam is that thickness h by L is small compared to unity. So this means slender. Basic definition of slenderness is or cross sectional dimension. Now here most important cross sectional dimension is depth. B is is not of much consequence, because anyway we have reduced the problem to that of plane stress. So h by L should be small, so it is a slender beam. Normally the loads on the beam are applied only from one side, either top or bottom. You never compress both sides. Beam, when you have a beam length like this, you load it like this, so it bends like this. So it is applied only from one side. So here you tell me, let us say here, let us say the load is on the top. What is the value of sigma z here at the bottom? This is sigma z or not? On a normal plane, yes, it is z. Sigma z is 0. It is a free surface. There is no load applied. So this is 0. Is it okay? So as you go in, the value of sigma z will be small, except when you come close to this. If you take the element over here, because on the top you have applied a load, let us say UDL is applied. So here sigma z should be same as equal to P naught. Is it okay? Yes or no? What is the at the top, if there is a load, and if I take my element over here, this is my element. In order that it is, so what is the value of sigma, this is sigma z. What value? So in order for equilibrium of this element in vertical direction, it is important that if this is P naught, if it is P naught upwards, upwards, then this sigma z will be downwards like this. If P naught is downward, then sigma z will be negative over here, and the value will be equal to P naught. Is it okay? Plus or minus? Now here it will be, if it is downwards, then it is negative. So maximum value of sigma z that is there, it is when where the loading is there on one of the surfaces, and that loading is not much. Normally when it is UDL, it is a small loading, and the moment you come, so value of sigma z is very small compared to sigma x. Sigma x is the stretching of the fiber, okay, because there are sigma x, sigma z, and then shear, this shear stresses. So this one is very small compared to, is it okay? So we assume in this theory, in this beam theory, when we are developing a a beam theory, that is a simpler beam theory, will just now come from 2-dimensional will come down to 1 dimension, okay, not only 2 dimensional, because plane stress is 2-dimensional problem, like this, state of stress in plane stress is this. Now we will come down to the beam. So we are developing a beam theory, we will say that yes, this sigma z is small, very small compared to sigma x and other. Etc. Is it okay? This is the assumption. This is an assumption. This is an assumption I am making. Is it okay? Because whenever you make assumption, that is reasonable. So this is a reasonable assumption. Yes, if the thickness of the beam is small, the value of sigma z will be very small, because loading is applied only from one side, and that is sigma z is present only in a small zone which is close to the loaded surface. That is all. The rest of the places sigma z will be small. So keep this in mind. It is important that we keep all these considerations in our discussion. So far, so now what is Hooke's law? Now what is epsilon x? Epsilon x is sigma x by A minus what? Nu times sigma y by, sigma z by, because here we are considering x and z, so sigma z by E. Now here I am considering that sigma z is small compared to sigma x. Therefore, this will be equal to only sigma x by E. So my Hooke's law gets simplified. Why we are doing this? Because plus this is also this quantity is multiplied by point nu. Nu is always less than unity. Nu is not only less than unity, is less than 0.5. Okay. So this is nu. So this quantity is very small compared to this. So we are saying epsilon x equal to this, and therefore sigma x can be approximated to E times epsilon x, and therefore this is equal to, and what is epsilon? Just now we got it how much? Z times rho as z into d phi by ds. So we have now related, we have got a relationship also of sigma x. Have you understood the logic? Because if I retain this sigma z, then I am in trouble, I am still in 2-dimensional. So by doing this, by simplifying this, I am reducing a 2-dimensional problem to 1 dimension. Now I am assuming that this main stress is only in x direction, longitudinal stress, sigma x. Normal stress is sigma x, and let us assume this is a small quantity, and therefore don't try to brush it over. You see, unless you understand this, you cannot understand mechanics of beams. All the other courses are dependent on this course, and the other courses are different. So there are concepts involved. It is not simply you put the force and take equilibrium. You have to understand deformation, you have to understand cause of deformation, strains produced, then strains have to be related to stresses. Once you get stresses, then you have to consider, yes, this is the what? What is the third step in study of any deformable body? Equilibrium, study of forces and equilibrium. Then we have to study equilibrium of the body. So that these are the three steps, three main steps of for study of any deformable body. So for example, two steps now we have done to some extent.